Hi ladies, I'm Pidge.
And I'm Mowen.
Welcome to the Night Shift Court podcast. We are two shift-working fantasy book lovers and love nothing more than leaving reality behind for a bookish adventure.
Join us as we go under the mountain to discuss our favourite fantasy fiction tales and the authors behind them.
Come with us to explore the stories, one shift at a time. Hi ladies.
Hi! Welcome back.
I say every week that was good. I am impressed. I couldn't do it.
Yes, you could. Go on. Actually, maybe.
Absolutely, Nick.
Oh, come on. Spoil sport.
Episode 21.
Yay! She breezed over that, didn't she?
Chapter 46 through to 50.
I get more nervous as the time goes on because this episode is the last episode before we get to
the juicy.
Yeah. And there's a lot that happens in these ones.
Yeah, that's true.
It's very stressy. I don't know if anyone else feels like this about this series, but I do. I feel the stress. I'm very much an empath and I can't help myself. I feel everything the characters feel.
Yeah, okay. What's the opposite of an empath? Right. Okay, well, I'm one of those, which is why we work, right?
Because I'm so nice and you're a
Yes. This is the only way on shift we can become one complete person between the two of us.
We
We're
do.
like, oh, this really horrible thing happened. I'm like, oh, don't worry about it.
But in fairness, to your defence, we do take it in turns.
We do, yeah.
Okay,
I
chapter
care about
46.
certain things, but not others. Right. Chapter 46.
Yep.
We're back at the Illyrian war camp
Yep.
house after the training session from last episode. So
Speaking of, just quickly, because we didn't actually touch on this, the Illyrian war camp house was occupied by all of the best fighters.
Yeah.
And Reese was like, Ross, they must get out and they have to clean it when they leave. And I love that because Devlin was like, but it's full of people. And Reese is like, it need not be full of people.
Vamoose from my mother's house.
Yes. Love it.
They're back there now, and it's tea time.
Yes.
Cassian cooks, and this is the first time he's cooked that we're aware of, and he has made, and I'll quote, a mutton stew.
Delicious.
What is mutton?
Mutton. You know mutton dressed up as lamb?
I know the saying, but what actually is mutton?
Lamb. Old lamb.
Oh, do you mean like the meat is old, like it's been sitting in the fridge for a week? Or do you mean old as in an aged
like
lamb?
the age of the animal. So
Oh,
basically,
I thought, like, old was better, like wine.
not with live meat.
Oh, okay.
Maybe with like aging meat. So
Aged meat and aging meat are the same thing to me.
No, because you know how like this is way off topic. Let's not. I will explain this off camera, but I will say mutton dressed as lamb is like a saying for older women.
I know what the saying
so it's like
is.
the older version of the lamb dressed up as a young lamb.
Right. So like
Grandma lamb parading as
so the offcuts, like the bad bits of the old lamb. So
anyway.
I've never had mutton, and we're 5 minutes in. So mutton stew, righto. Cassian.
I forgot what we were even talking.
Our podcast.
But I literally was like, now where was the mutton? Like, where did the mutton come into it? Cassian cooks, right?
Cassian cooks, right. Funny. Can fight, can cook.
Love him.
Yeah.
Want
Tick,
to
tick,
marry
tick.
him. Tick, tick, tick.
Yeah.
We're very greedy.
Aren't we?
Yeah.
So Feyre and Reese head upstairs after the stew that changed everybody. Feyre and Moore will share a room, and Cassian and Reese will share a room, which I think is hilarious because it's almost like kids. It's like, well, I feel like Reese has seen enough of Feyre that sharing a bed with her is not a big deal.
Yeah.
And Cassian has seen enough of more that it also is not a big deal.
Definitely.
But anyway, people have a weird thing about like
Sharing
who they will sleep. I'll sleep in the bed with anyone.
Same. Just
Yeah.
don't touch me.
Oh, like at all.
Oh, no. I mean, not you specifically, but just like if I'm sharing a bed with someone that's not my husband.
Oh, yeah.
Don't touch me unless. Anyway.
I think Mowen and
lot
her
of
husband
this-
have a few like a list of things that they will do and things that they won't do.
A lot of this episode is going to be cut out already.
Okay, so Feyre leans against her and Moore's bedroom door frame and watches Reese as he enters his room. He puts his hand on the door handle, but then like turns around, opens his mouth to say something, and Feyre's like and slips inside. She, like at the last second, she's like, never mind.
Yeah.
So she's going down the garden path of wanting to spend some alone time with Reese,
Yeah.
but she just isn't willing to accept it yet. She decides that what she wants from Reese is both fun and distraction, and that way she doesn't feel like so much of a traitor to
Yes.
Tamlin, because she's not getting feelings for him and getting involved with him. She's just having a one-night stand because she's randy.
She's lying to herself. We all know
Absolutely.
this. And stop comparing him. I get really frustrated.
Yeah. Next day, she and Reese are going off into the mountains again, and she motions to Reese a bit like,
Yeah.
you know, like
Away with you.
Yeah, away with you, because she's going to the stream to practice her some water magic.
Yeah. She's a bit self-conscious, so she likes to train away from everyone.
Yes, similar like with the Ator, where
Yeah.
she was like, you know, can you go to a pocket realm? And
Yeah.
he was like, no, you know, it's similar sort of thing. So
Yeah.
anyway, she's so distracted thinking about Reese that she doesn't realise that she's actually got some visitors.
She does.
Until someone says her name.
Yeah. So she hears a Feyre and turns to find herself surrounded by 4 Spring Court sentinels and our favourite,
He's back.
Lucian. He's back in a very not particularly welcome sense. He's burnt us and Feyre. So Lucian says to Feyre they've been hunting her for a couple of months now.
Well, the last time he saw her was on the day when Tamlin locked her in the manor. And remember, he turned around to her and he was like, I'll try again. I'll try and talk to him again. And that's the last.
Feyre has this realisation that Reese is too far away to help or hear. And Lucian says someone's tipped them off about where they were. So they've been tracking the situation. And Lucian says he's going to take her straight to Tamlin, come with me. Tamlin hasn't been himself.
I've got candy in my van.
It's absolutely like that, isn't it? And Feyre says no. And Lucian says, come on, let's go home. And Feyre's like, what drugs are you on, sunshine? That has not been my home for a long time. That stopped being my home when he locked me inside it. Lucian says that was a big mistake. Tamlin is sorry and he's sorry and everyone's sorry.
They always are.
And Lucian says, you need to come with me. And he tries to grab her and then she's able to winnow. She uses, as we know, rage to push herself to embody these powers.
So this is only the second time that she's winnowed deliberately.
Correct.
Like, yeah, that she's tried. Well, she's tried many times, so this is the second time she's been successful.
Exactly. So she's winnowing away from him and now Reese appears beside her. He's been listening the whole time. He was never that far away.
No, he never is.
He never is. And Feyre tells Lucian not to come looking for her again. And he says Tamlin is never going to stop looking for you. Lucian says things have got really bad at the Spring Court and you shouldn't have given up on it. We shouldn't have given up on you. And Feyre says, look, you chose to obey Tamlin instead of looking out for me. I asked you for help multiple times. I begged you to let me out for an hour and you never did. And Lucian basically absolves himself of any responsibility yet again and says, look, I was trying to be obedient. I was trying to be unified. Those months were really important. All that political bullshit that he's spun before, he doubles down. And Feyre says, I literally begged you and you never helped me. So then, being the impressive being that she now is, she starts to shift. And she appears with Illyrian wings. And Lucian's like quite freaked out at this point. She has this realization whereby she's complaining about being locked up, but she's meant to be running with Night Court. And the night court to everybody else is evil and they lock people up and it's very, it's bad.
Yeah.
So then she's like, right,
She
what am I
needs to
doing?
play the game that Reese plays.
Exactly.
And have the same mask as him.
That's right. So she starts obviously to embody that darkness. And she says, I spent so much time looking into the darkness that the darkness then looked back at me or something like that.
Yeah.
I won't quote it exactly because you just need to read the book, basically.
If you don't know the quote, then you shouldn't be.
Yeah. So she then sort of, checks herself and morphs into this like dark lady, if you will. And she embodies this person who makes a very serious threat. Don't come looking for me. If you do, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to hunt you down. I'm going to kill you. And she basically says, tell Tamlin that if he sends anyone else into Night Court lands, she will hunt each and every one of them down. And Lucian tells Reese that he and his cursed court are dead. And then they leave. It's like, don't make a threat to the most powerful High Lord and then disappear, you dickhead.
Yeah.
I love Lucian, but jeez.
What I find really interesting about this interaction is that, so do you remember when they came to get Feyre from the Spring Court and Moore had to come and get her because Reese couldn't come because he would have broken some very fundamental rules in taking her away?
Yeah.
Because initially I thought, well, if Lucian's here and they got information on where Feyre is, why isn't Tamlin here? And then I realised it was because of these particular rules that now that she's part of this Night Court, that she can't be taken back to Tamlin because of these rules. So the other part of me was like, oh, well, she's considered a person of the Night Court now.
Yep.
Which means, yay.
Yeah, being the emissary, having left and stayed of her own accord.
Yeah, that's
speaks
right.
volumes.
Yeah.
So
because there was that drama at the Summer Court around her being returned to Tamlin at his request and that they would have to obey.
Yes.
But I actually think that that's not the case, that she's now considered a member of the Night Court.
Yep.
And can stay or go as she pleases.
That's right.
Reese flies her away in his typical style and they arrive at the tavern, which is a little more than a dining room with some rooms off it.
Yeah.
All of which are full.
Yep.
Reese doesn't want to reveal his identity as High Lord to get one of those rooms. So they end up accepting a tiny little room which is just up from the bar. Up a narrow set of stairs. So it's literally right in the bar.
Not very much privacy.
Not at all. Tiny little room, medium-sized bed.
And only one bed.
Only one.
Finally.
Yeah.
We're here. We're at the one bed trope.
We are. What we've all been long awaiting.
Oh my goodness.
Chapter 48. We've stuck through it for 48 chapters.
We have.
So Feyre remarks that she's hungry, which is, fair. She's been using her magic today. Reese offers to go and get dinner from downstairs, from the kitchen. But he does say to her, I'd rather not be down there long enough to be noticed. So he's told her to get changed while he's gone. So he's basically saying, do it now because be quick about it because I'm not going to be down there very long. So he's trying to anticipate that he doesn't want to walk in on her changing. So she should do it swiftly.
Hurry up.
Yeah. She gets changed and Sarah actually writes her rain-swollen skin, which I could just so relate to. Do you remember when you get wet from the rain and it's cold and you got to pee? It's like you do feel swollen, don't you?
Yeah.
Anyway, I feel sorry for Feyre here. She gets changed. She waits on the bed. She thinks about her interaction that day and she realises that Tamlin had ignored her note. So the note that she wrote to him saying, I've left and I'm not coming back. I left of my own free will and, blah, blah, blah.
Did he receive it?
He's ignored that, just like he's ignored every other one of her requests that she's ever made.
Yeah, fair.
Typical Tamlin.
Yeah, consistency.
That's right. Reese returns and changes out of his wet clothes. Feyre gives him her back. No traitorous eyes this time, which part of me is like, why? It's right there.
Now is the time.
Yeah, right. There's one bed. I can see this coming and you can't because yet again. Anyway, so Reese sits down to eat with Feyre on the bed and they have a little bit of a discussion about Reese's magic and about how he needs to drain it.
Yeah.
And he makes an interesting comment. He says, oh.
I'm sorry. I have a dirty mind. Anyway, as you were. Yeah.
So Amryn taught me enough about controlling it, enough that I owe a great deal to her, including the current shield around my city whilst I'm here. My understanding of that quote is that Rhys knew Amryn before he was High Lord and that she helped him to learn, use and control his magic. Because remember, his dad died and they weren't all that close anyway. So I think he was suddenly quite overwhelmed by the responsibility and the magic that he now had. And I think he knew Amryn before that point in time at the Spring Manor where everyone died.
That makes sense.
And so I think that he's gone to her for her support and she's taught him a lot. But also this is another bit of information we learned about Amryn's magic because we don't hear a lot about it apart from at the summer court where she touched the door.
Yeah.
So essentially she is shielding Valaris at the moment while Rhys is not there, which means she is quite powerful.
Definitely.
They exchange one sexy thought for another. They play their little game and these thoughts are particularly sexy.
Yeah.
Off to bed they go and Rhys decides to be the big spoon because she's shivering because her hair's wet. And lesson, don't ever go to bed with wet hair.
No, my mum always used to tell me, you'll get sick if you go to bed with wet hair. And
That's
to this day, I do.
Yeah.
I always dry Lila's hair when she...
Yeah, it's awful.
Yeah.
Like the feeling of going to bed
It
with wet
is.
hair is awful.
Yeah, it really is. We get a lot of sexual release in this scene.
Yes.
So whilst we don't get a home run, there's a lot of Feyre using this I'm cold excuse.
I want to have fun
Yeah.
excuse.
Yeah.
They have a little bit of like inside the clothes fun, as
Yeah.
I would call it.
Yeah.
They have a big old kiss, which
They
is
do.
tongue and all, which is
Yeah.
lovely. Rhys says some mouth-watering lines that we probably can't repeat without being cancelled.
Yeah.
Before swaddling Feyre to sleep. He
Yeah.
essentially like locks her legs, locks her arms, puts his wing over her and then rubs her tummy like a baby. That's what I do to my baby.
Let's
Swaddle
not talk
him.
about your baby right now. This is exactly why women fall in love with these books, these scenes.
Yeah.
Because they are written by a woman for a woman.
Yes.
And it is not about a man's pleasure. It is
Agree.
exactly what women want, is to be held,
Swaddled.
swaddled, rubbed to sleep.
So glad you said to sleep.
If you can just take a second to realise how painful all of this would have been for Rhys, because obviously he admits what he wants to do and all of the things, but he's finally laying in bed, spooning Feyre after all of this. Like she was in love with Tamlin. She wanted to marry him. He realised they were, and then he's finally got her, and she's admitted she wants to have some fun, and he must be dying inside.
Yeah.
So it would finally feel like, a step in the right direction, but still like dangling.
Rhys is doing what Rhys has always done, which is giving Feyre what she needs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not about
regardless
him.
of whether it benefits him or not.
That's right.
Yeah. It's just a sexier example of it.
Exactly.
Than what he's been doing this whole book.
Yeah. And largely because it's the first opportunity they've actually had to be alone, and they've got the one bed trope, etc., etc.
So they wake up the next day. Feyre decides no bath. Ooh, that's a big call.
Yeah, I would be straight in the bath.
Yeah. So they fly again, and Rhys says to Feyre that there's more of the story that he needs to tell her. And I think knowing what is about to happen, we know what that conversation would have been. However, it was interrupted because he is shot down by a dozen ash arrows.
Yeah.
He throws Feyre
Yes, literally.
far, super far,
Yep.
using his magic. He throws her out of the
Danger
radar
zone.
of the arrows, and she uses her own power as a net to kind of catch herself amongst the trees.
Yeah. Impressive, actually.
Yeah. So she does that. She scrambles onto a tree and has a little meltdown about what's just happened. She tries calling for Rhys down the bond multiple times and there's no answer. It's like there's nothing at the end of the bond now instead of that wall of black that is Rhys in his mind. And she realises that she has become used to having him in her mind now.
And it's really silent now.
Yeah, it's weird without it, essentially. She becomes enraged that Rhys has been taken again and uses that rage to winnow from tree to tree back to the original place where he was shot. She finds a few of the arrows and follows the footprints. So she's back to her tracking days in the forest. She tracks him through the forest, gets to a fork in the road, realizes that his scent goes in both directions and that they must have taken his clothes to do so. There's one particular fork in the road that smells of her from last night. So she follows that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. She finds Reese in the cave, strung up by his arms.
Yeah.
And there's a few ash arrows. I think there's 7 through his wings.
Yeah. So she basically collects all of the arrows and daggers that she comes across and slaughters all of the guards on her way to find him. Vicious. And like the graphic audio was particularly amazing in this scene. So, and she was like coaching herself through how she can do this. Like I can't even remember the verbiage she used, but it was like, I am bloody positively manifesting the entire time. And anyway, so she gets to Reese and she realizes that he's, like you say, strung up with manacles or whatever. And then there's several ash arrows still in situ that they have removed several from his legs, and she's not sure why they would have removed those.
Paramedicine 101, don't remove a protruding object.
That's right. So they're still oozing at the ones that are remaining, I think, are mostly in his arms and wings.
Yeah.
So she decides that she has to remove them, obviously, because she knows that they're poisoned. And she starts to cut them because otherwise she's
dragging
afraid
the arrow back through.
Yeah, she's afraid if she breaks them that the splinters will remain. So she's thinking about all these variables about I killed that one fairy with one ash arrow and look what happened, and he's got like so many. Yeah. And so she's catastrophizing this and whatever. Yeah. So she cuts them and removes them all.
During the removal of them, she tells Reese a story to distract him, and it's about the dresser. And
I loved this.
And I noted a really particular part where she tells, him about the flames for Nesta and the flowers for Elaine. But she says, I think Elaine would like it too, referring to Valaris, although she'd probably cling to Asriel just to have some peace and quiet. And I found that really interesting because obviously the first time I read it, I just thought, oh yeah, whatever. Yeah. Second time I read it, I realised what power she manifests as in Silver Flames.
Yes.
And I realised that she probably does want some peace and quiet and that Asriel may be able to provide that with her. And then she said, I smiled at the thought how handsome they would be together.
Yeah, I loved that little tidbit. I was like, there is a nugget.
Yes.
And this is why I love the graphic audio, because we were just talking about reading types earlier. I am I'm a mental reader. So I read things and I hear them in my head.
Yeah, okay.
So that's why it's quicker for me to read via Audible.
Yeah, okay.
So I like to read and I can adapt. If I'm reading for a cause, I'll read quickly and I'll become more adaptive in visual reading. But I'm more of a mental reader, which is why I read so slow.
Yeah.
So when I get to Audible and I can turn up the speed, I can still envisage all of this.
It's so interesting because I've never listened to an audiobook.
Yeah,
ever.
right.
Yeah, never.
Okay.
I am tempted to listen to the graphic audio of this one.
You should just to see.
For how good it is.
Yeah.
But I certainly would not turn it on for listening for any podcast research, or like I listen to podcasts, but not audiobooks.
Yeah, I find it so interesting. So that's how I can picture a lot of these things, and it's what makes me excited for whatever they do with the series.
Yeah. So Farah says that she painted the night sky for herself, and she said, I wonder if I was looking for this place, looking for you all. Not just specifically
not
Reese, but her family.
I quite liked that because it's not just about
him. Yeah.
The boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Reese says, I was looking for you too, which we learn is indeed true.
And then he passes out.
Yeah. So Farah stays up all night and realises that the reason he's still not recovering is that he's been poisoned as opposed to just healing from the arrows, that they actually were coated in poison. So she jumps off to go and lay a trap for her dehydrated bestie.
I am so glad we get to hear from the surreal again.
Yeah.
And what I find really convenient, which is fiction, is that the surreal just happens to be in the area that
the same one.
Yeah, the same surreal in the area that is very far from the last place from whence it came.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Feyre lays her trap and she's expert at this now.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, I've got
Yeah.
to get in another trap. But she uses her cloak this time, which Alice told her,
Perfection.
don't worry about the dead chickens, just give them a new cloak.
Yeah.
She has an interaction with him, or him, I should say. And during that interaction, he's like holding onto the cloak. It's like, mine.
I love it. My precious.
Yeah.
The Surreal, like we've established, is one of my favourite characters. And I think it's that perfect mix of ancient, demonic kind of dark character mixed with like light-hearted banter.
Yes.
And that's why we love it, right? The Surreal Tico.
Yeah. And what's funny is he doesn't say anything particularly good or funny.
No.
But we're all just like, oh no, this one is following Feyre, as in he is her groupie.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. And I think it's for a very good purpose,
Yeah.
obviously.
So Reese has been poisoned with bloodbane, and the cure is her blood because it is rich with the healing powers possessed by the High Lord of the Dawn Court.
Yes.
Which, interestingly, we come to learn is Lucien's dad. So, spoiler.
Yeah.
But I wanted to raise that because does Lucien have healing powers as a result?
You would assume.
So Feyre releases the cereal at the same time as it says, if you wish to speed your mate's healing in addition to your blood, a pink flowered weed sprouts by the river, make him chew it. And Feyre picks up on the fact that he has said, your mate. I didn't pick up on that the first time I read it because of the style of reading that I do.
Yeah, you skim.
Because I speed read and then read the intention of the word. I skipped over the word mate.
And it's probably a very Aussie thing to do
That's
as well.
right,
Because we obviously use
Mate
the word
is friend.
mate
Yeah.
as, you're my mate.
Yeah.
You're my mate.
Yes.
But mated,
Yeah. Has a different meaning.
So Feyre-
she's pissed.
she's wild. She's absolutely freaking wild. So she keeps repeating, my mate, my mate. It's actually comical, her exchange with the Surreal, because he's like, oh, did you not know? And she's like, no. And he goes to tell her more and she says, no, he will tell me the story. Thank you very much. And she's like, right. And she goes. She's like,
But
marching.
the Surreal waits around. So it's released from its trap. And he's like, I'm going to stay and tell you the story of what actually happened.
He's watching the show. He may as well have followed Feyre back to like watch the exchange that they're going to have.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why we love him.
So she goes and picks the weeds.
Yes.
And throws them at Reese.
Literally. She's like, chew this.
Feyre asks him how long he's known, and Reese confirms that it was since Amarantha killed her. So, as most of us suspected.
Yes.
And probably now she knows that she probably would have suspected, right?
Yeah.
Feyre's heartbroken that Reese had kept this from her.
Yeah.
He reveals that Amaran and Moore already know.
Yeah.
But that Cassian and Asriel suspect.
Yes.
So they all know.
They all know. And, you know, simultaneously, Feyre's like seething, but she's also like, she's bloody cut herself and she's like, drink this. And she pushes Reese's head onto her arm and gives him like 3 or 4 mouthfuls of her blood. And he's like, okay, riding the wave. And then she says, she replays that time on the balcony before they left under the mountain. And she's like, oh my God, that stumble and that wide-eyed that you had, and then you disappeared. And then she realizes that, you know, that was the moment that the bond had snapped into place and he had realized it. And then she's just loses it. She's like, you said you were never going to lie. You were always going to be honest and you would never keep me in the dark, and raging. I get it. But also my female brain places more importance on the knowledge than the fact that I was kept something from again, because I understand why. And he tries to explain, it's like it wasn't the right time. Like, it's only 6 months have passed, right? In that time, as he explains, she's been engaged. She's in love with Tamlin. She's going to marry him. Then he has to take her away because she's getting locked up and her life is chaos. When's the right time? Obviously yesterday, when he was about to tell her that he didn't get to because he got shot.
Yes. Yeah.
When
valid
the right
reason.
time? They're all valid.
I think Feyre just is quick to get mad.
Yeah.
And we've seen that time and time again. And this is the same situation. She's quick to get mad and then overreact. And as we know in the coming chapters, she overreacts and then everything settles.
Exactly.
So this is just very typical of her. But what I really took out of the last few paragraphs of this chapter is that the reason she's so hurt is because she realizes that when she first came to the night court, her heart was broken.
Yeah.
And in the time that she's been there, it has been repaired and she feels it now breaking all over again. But the fact that it had been repaired in the first place, that she didn't realise, I think is really important. She demands, now that he's semi-conscious and functioning,
He's not very well.
no, that he winnows her back to the Illyrian camp.
So he finally musters up enough strength to be able to winnow them away and back to the Illyrian camp.
That's it for this episode of the Night Shift Court podcast. Join us for next week's episode, where we will continue the adventure from ACOTAR's Book 2, A Court of Mist and Fury.
Whichever platform you're listening on, we would so appreciate if you could give us a 5-star review. You can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at The Night Shift Court.
I hope the night is kind.